Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Bet on Black pitch for the 10K project. We are the largest community of investors who actively fund Black-owned businesses, and we do it through something called equity crowdfunding. And tonight's Bet on Black pitch is by a wonderful team here led by Elliot Small. He has EJ here with him as well as Taylor, and they have come to the 10K project before, so you may recognize them, but we have a lot of new people here, and if you don't recognize them, you are in for a treat. So their company is the Centers for Age Control, and they have a very unique app that they are putting together. They're here to present the information to us tonight. So this is the way that the Bet on Black pitch usually works, is I will show you their WeFunder campaign page. They are on WeFunder, just to give you an overview of where things are and where you can find certain pieces of information. Then I'm going to turn it over to Elliot and EJ and Taylor, and they have a presentation that'll take anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes. During that time, if you have questions, put those in the Q&A. This is your chance to ask these founders as many questions as you would like in order to make a decision as to whether you want to be an investor in their company. We don't typically leave until all the questions have been asked and answered. So you can ask questions about the market opportunity. You can ask questions about some of the financials, anything like that, the future of the company, things like that. And then if you have additional questions for them, we do ask, actually the law also asks that you go to the WeFunder page in order to ask those questions. Don't go to their emails and ask, because with the law, they want it to be public information, any questions that investors are asking and they are answering. So, we have a lot of new people, like I said, in here. So that's kind of the way that the law works with regards to that. So the other thing is that Talisha's here, and she is going to put in the special link to the campaign page. We ask that you use that link so that we can kind of tabulate how many people we are sending to this company. It's just a great way for us to have a metric with regards to how many eyeballs that are going to this campaign. And the final thing is you could share the link with your family and friends as well. We don't share the Bet on Black pitch itself because that's the members only benefit, but we do want as many eyes as possible on the WeFunder campaign page. So feel free to take that link. If you think there's somebody who would be interested in being an investor, then definitely pass the link on to them. So the WeFunder page is here. Okay. This is WeFunder. This is the platform that it's on. You can invest in the Centers for Age Control, Inc. This is the Age Meter app. You will see that they have a closing coming up on August 15th. So that's right around the corner, 6 days from now. We want you to be educated investors, but we definitely do want you to know that you do have a time limit on this investment. And the minimum investment is $100,000. They've already raised $106,377. On the campaign page, you will find all sorts of information with regards to the project itself. You will also find details. You will find updates. You will see questions that other people have asked, and that has been answered as well. But this is the campaign page here with all of the information with regards to the team and the pitch itself. And we are going to now turn this over to EJ and Elliot. So hold on a second. Is the minimum investment $100,000? No, $100, not 100,000, Michelle. $100, Micheline, I'm sorry, $100. So if I said 100,000, I do apologize for that. With that, I didn't want to scare anybody, sorry. So I'm going to pass it to EJ and to Elliot and welcome them this evening. Everyone throw a quick exclamation point in just to give them like a round of applause for being here this evening. Thank you so much.
Thanks everyone for coming out this evening to hear what we've got. Our company, Centers for Age Control, with our Age Meter app, has the opportunity to be at the ground floor of a whole new aging reversal industry, which also touches on other industries, as you'll see during the presentation. And that's an unusual situation we've seen for an African-American founded company. And it's about time that you hear some of those African-American or Black names out there, along with Elon Musk and the others that are in the news all the time. So EJ is the COO. He's going to start off the presentation. Taylor is the CTO. He's going to do another part of the presentation. So with that, I guess EJ, go ahead and start.
Sure, I'll take it away. Thank you, Elliot. Thank you, Sheree, and thank you to all of you for spending your evening with us. We are here to talk to you about the Age Meter. As Sheree said, we have an active WeFunder campaign going on that is wrapping up this week. The terms of the WeFunder can be found on the WeFunder page, but we want to make sure that you know what we're all about, what we're trying to do. And for those of you who are already familiar with us, we want to make sure that we give you updates as to what progress we've made since the last time you might have heard from us. So for those of you who haven't heard about the Age Meter, we want to start off very basically. What is the Age Meter? The Age Meter is the first non-invasive platform for estimating the body's functional age, or at what age is my body functioning. That's decidedly different than your body's chronological age, which is when you were born. And the reason why we think this is important is that the studies have shown, our research has shown that the body's functional age has a stronger correlation with how predicting how long someone we think they're going to live. And we think that if we can extend the body's functional age, then we can extend someone's lifespan or give them higher odds at living longer. And so healthcare providers, researchers, consumers could use the Age Meter biomarkers to lower a person's estimated functional age over time. And so the overall raise that we're doing, the terms are raising $1.5 million overall for 15% stake at the $10 million valuation. The terms on the WeFunder reflect that $10 million valuation. And so whether you're investing $100 or $100,000, like Sheree alluded to earlier, we welcome all investments. We want to make sure you know where your money is going and how we plan to take anti-aging into the future and make that future now. So with that, we want to make sure that you know who's involved with the team. So just quick round of Elliot, you've already met. He's our founder. Taylor is our CTO. Edward Lane, you might notice he has a similar name as me. He's our medical director. I'm our COO, and Joe Strickland, also in IT, helping to round out our very diverse team. Then on our advisory board, again, Sheree alluded to the fact that Dr. George Church has joined our advisory board. Obviously, Dr. Ronald Dunlap and Nicole Lane are experts in their field as well, but it is hard to compare anyone to the prowess that George Church brings, being one of the foremost experts in the anti-aging field at Harvard and just around the world. So we're super excited to have him on board. And for more information on that, you can check out our WeFunder page. We'd let folks know that he joined our team. And we're just looking forward to continuing to meet with him. We've already met with him multiple times. Great input. We're looking forward to moving things forward with him. So what does the Age Meter do? We already talked about the goal of the Age Meter, helping people estimate their body's functional age, but how do we do that? So there's a series of biomarkers, and these aging biomarkers are biomarkers that we know through research degrade over time as folks get older. These are things like your audio and visual reaction time, your decision and movement time, your hearing, your short-term memory, your muscle speed coordination. These are all things that we measure as shown in the graph on the left. And this is an actual printout of what you would get at the end of your age meter test, where for each of the biomarkers that we measure, we compare you against other people in your age range. And for the scores where you do better than other people in your age range, you score higher, greater than 50%. For scores where you do worse, we put you on the left side. And obviously, the more things that you do well on compared to people in your age range, you're going to have you do better overall. So you have a lower functional age as a result of that. And so this can be a yardstick to help measure someone's functional age that you can work with a medical professional to lower that age over time. But we also have a consumer version of the age meter coming out soon, where we want to make sure that people at home can have these same tools available if you want to measure this over time at home, and maybe even make it a little bit fun, which we'll talk about a little bit later as well. So the different age meter versions that we have right now, we have the professional version that we have in medical practices, fitness centers, research institutes around the world. We are working on our consumer mobile app. We're all testing the beta right now, working through the last few kinks. Taylor, I can talk much more about that a little bit later on as well. We're targeting a 22 release in the fall later this year, where we want to continue to bring new value to the users of it, initially with a free version, but we want to have a premium upgrade option for folks who are looking for additional value and who are looking to measure their functional age with additional tests, new suggestions, better communication with medical professionals and our medical board. And we want to make sure that we can make functional age measurement available to as many people around the world as possible. So keep an eye out for that release coming soon. It'll be available initially on iPads, but we're looking forward to making it available on smaller phone devices and on Android in the future as well. I mentioned that age meters being used around the world today, and I wasn't joking. We have we have over 70 at this point, age meters around the world, different continents, different countries, every continent except for Antarctica at this point. And we're looking to continue to expand that, again, both from the medical side, because like the most important part of this for us is we want to make sure that the science is sound, and that we want to make sure that the medical professionals have bought into this. So that's why we started with the medical professionals, but we want to, again, be able to bring this value to as many people as possible. So that's why we're now coming forward with the consumer app as well. And the last thing before I hand it off to Taylor is, as we look at the emerging markets around digital apps, digital health apps, people taking control of their aging, and again, trying to find ways to make it fun for folks so they continuously stay involved, continuously want to, keep an eye on their body overall. We want to make sure that we know what markets exist, but what new opportunities are also out there where we can combine things that some people are already aware of, but have not thought about combining them in to create a new opportunity that we want to capitalize onto. And so I'm going to hand it off to Taylor to talk about how we want to capitalize on the market.
Beautiful. Good evening to everyone, especially a late evening to those in England. So looking at a bit of the TAM sum and the larger market opportunity. So I think most of us would have familiarity. The health industry is a very large one with a lot of revenue flowing through it. And the way we approached it is really looking at digital health, which is where the age meter sits, is living in that digital application. And then narrowing that down a bit further, the larger digital health industry is going to exceed well over $1 trillion in the very near future. By 2030, this particular estimate, $1.5 trillion. As we look at really kind of narrowing down, we would exist within the digital health application or the app space. So this is a variety of applications. This can be virtual reality applications, mobile applications, or web-based applications is really the world in which we live, which continues to also be a very significant market share and a growing market share. I think we all see it in our everyday lives, from downloading Fitbit apps, meditation apps. They're everywhere. And going down a bit further, really the key opportunity that we're looking at is we're trying to target about a 5% saturation rate on that $30 billion figure. And we're looking to do so because right now there is a large gap. If you go onto the App Store, and I encourage you to do it yourself on whatever your platform may be, there is a very large void which exists, which in the world of aging. And aging as a whole is really an emerging field, even from within the medical space. If you talk to doctors, and Dr. Church, for example, he's been a pioneer for years and years and years, and really now is starting to get a level of traction never before seen in terms of creating actual tangible innovations in the space that consumers can actually digest. And really, we're looking at targeting what we kind of combine it as three main categories: is the world of digital health, focusing on the world of aging, and then the gamification of that and the entertainment factor that can be baked in and combined with that overall experience, which we're very excited to share. And so going on to the next slide a bit further is looking at one of the problems. We're all aging. Everyone on this call is aging, and by the time this call ends, we will have all aged, for better or for worse. And so with that, some stats that are very kind of intuitive: 87% of people fear poor health from aging. I think we all agree with that. One of the key facets is I want to age, not only live longer. And I think this is a key of those really involved within the field. It's not just about living longer, it's about living longer, healthier. So while you're living longer, you want to live healthier throughout that entire time period. And so being able to really get a firm understanding of what is going on within your body and looking at as many key physiological biomarkers as we can is imperative. I think everyone on this call wants to live healthier while they're alive, and we want to extend that lifespan. And so this is a huge market, and the world is aging as a whole. The average age of the world is increasing, especially we look at kind of the leaders of the pack. You look at nations like Japan, where birth rates are declining. The average age of the entire world is getting older, and associated with that, tools and investment within that space is going to be increasing. Investment from governments, from private businesses, and then demand from those consumers themselves. And if we look at the current app market, like I mentioned before, is you have fitness, you have nutrition, you have meditation, but there's really a gap there when it comes to proactive age-related tactics. You have general fitness and general wellness, but you really don't see, again, anything in the market that's trying to identify physiological and biological age, and then really try to proactively tackle those and provide insightful information beyond simply, the general idea is work out and eat vegetables and you're going to live longer. How do you actually measure that? How do you actually provide tool sets to consumers so that they can take control of that? Because there's certainly an interest. And I think as soon as you have a conversation, what we've seen, as soon as you have a conversation with people about what age meter is and what technologies are around it, there's immediately an interest, because whether people talk about it or not, this truly impacts every single living being on the planet, which I think is really the fundamental piece of this larger opportunity. Is this: there's truly not a person on the planet to which this could not benefit in some way, shape, or form. And if we look at kind of a bit further into the aging reversal category as a whole. So as I mentioned before, 87% of people, and really a larger percentage, everyone is interested in some capacity to health and wellness and longevity. And age meter really brings with it its own, not only the marker, so not only the yardstick by which you can say, okay, if I'm 50, is my body functioning like a 43-year-old, or is it functioning as a 65-year-old? That's a great piece of information, but it doesn't stop there. You need to provide not only a way to detect that and measure that consistently over time, but what do you do? And so we're also developing and actually just completed our head of the medical board, Dr. Lane, just completed a year-long process of documentation of, based on the age meter score, what can you tangibly do from an action standpoint to help combat the results from each individual biomarker that we take. So the age meter solution is not only looking at measuring the device, but also providing real tangible solutions to be able to do so. And we can provide, ideally, we're trying to create an environment where it's a non-invasive, but you're creating an enjoyable, engaging, gamified experience where we can collect more data points more consistently through it, not only people engaging with the application, but also syncing with the likes of an Apple Watch or any other Bluetooth connected fitness device. And any wearable device. We're starting to get more wearable headsets, HMDs. We can tap into all of this passive data on top of the active data that we're collecting through the testing sequence to be able to provide what we look at is ultimately the largest repository of age-related data, specific biomarker data in existence and be able to manipulate and perform data analysis, the likes of which has never really been seen. And if you talk to leaders like Dr. George Church, this may surprise a lot of people, but there really isn't, a great age study that has been conducted. It's very patchwork. It's a particular isolated, spirometry is one of the measures that we look at. So lung function, surprisingly strongly correlated with aging. But that research is done just on spirometry, for example, or reaction time, audio reaction time. How quickly can you react to a sound? How quickly can you convert that to a muscle movement? Something we don't necessarily think of, but also strongly correlated with aging. And all of these independent metrics have been discovered over time, but no one really combines them together and looks at cross correlations and contextual information about somebody's lifestyle and so on. And that's part of what inspired Dr. Sinclair and Dr. Church and got them so excited. And again, they're the preeminent individuals within the field, is having a mechanism to be able to collect this type of data en masse, which has really not yet been done before. And as we go on kind of a bit further on the gamification side, which EJ alluded to a bit earlier, is our long-term intent. Today, the age meter is a bit more of a medical tool, if you will. It's still an engaging and I find enjoyable process, but it's button related and so on, to be able to collect. You breathe into a spirometry tube, you react to illuminated buttons on a screen. People still have quite an enjoyment in the test, but really long term is what provides the greatest degree of value to people, is people's desire to take it over time. And the more data and the more metrics we have for the individual, the greater the value of that data to that individual. And if we just take it, one example is memory and cognitive ability. And how do you gamify that experience? And so if we look at memory, if you have the ability to understand across all of your metrics, we saw a bit of the illustration earlier, but if you're at 50 percentile, which is of your age and gender exactly where we'd expect you to be, and all of a sudden your cognitive ability is at the 20th percentile, which means 80% of people have a better cognitive function than you, or memory, or whatever the specific facet we're looking at. Those types of indicators are ones that you want to keep an eye on. Is it just a one-off, or can you continue to get the same result? And if you're seeing that your cognitive decline is outpacing the rest of your biomarkers, that's obviously of a concern. And we've already seen this in some of the applications really in the field of the age meter used today. And we really want to emphasize the gamification. So my background is I own a development firm. We have over 30 million, or coming up on our 30 million downloads across all the products we've developed. We've worked with multi-billion-dollar companies, and we've seen this applied, gamification techniques and really best practices applied in so many other fields. And health, and specifically the medical space, always lags behind. We've been to conferences that's out there, and really we want to be able to bring the innovation that's being made elsewhere within the industry and best practices, and really bring that to create a fun, enjoyable, gamified experience that's going to give people a reason to come back, give them more data points, and ultimately allow us to provide the most valuable tool set on the market at the end of the day. And talking again in the aging reversal market, I've alluded to already. So Dr. Church and Dr. Sinclair, I strongly encourage anyone interested in the field to look up their work. Just Google their name, you'll find endless videos. Dr. Sinclair tends to be the more public face of the world. You'll find him on Joe Rogan's podcast, for example. And so he tends to get himself out there from a branding perspective, but they have done incredible in terms of pushing this field forward. Both of which have provided quotes, Dr. Church, we need standardized physiological measures. The age meter can help us get there. And, it's even being considered for those familiar with Peter Diamandis. He's a fairly prominent figure within the medical space. He's a founder of the X Prize, and the X Prize, again, I encourage you to look that up, is really a fantastic organization. They raise effectively about $100 million pools of donated funds that are then given to people for the great goods of humanity. So they're doing one on carbon capture, $100 million fund. I think Elon Musk backed that one. He's also starting one for age reversal. Can we truly find tangible methodologies to reverse aging? He's putting together his $100 million fund now, and he's considering the age meter to be part of the detection process. So I think his benchmark is something like, can we reduce the age of mammals, or I think it's primates or humans, and can we measure it, a reduction of 15%? And how do you measure it? Well, there's blood panels and so on, but there's a big gap in there, which the age meter is looking to fill, which is non-invasive functional biomarkers. When you throw your leg out of bed in the morning, how do you measure how you're feeling? Which is one of the main pieces of living. And so we went to speak with at Peter Diamandis's event where he was raising for this. So it's very real in terms of AgeMeter's involvement in some of these major initiatives. And today, again, there really is no standard. And if you look at the larger market, the competitive landscape, if you will. So we have a few listed here: AgeMeter, TrueAge, MyDNA Age, Insight Tracker, Glycan Age. A lot of these are focused on blood panels, for example. So actually taking your blood panels, measuring telomere length, measuring various other markers that are validated as well to detect effectively age. But what none of these ultimately do, first thing, we're not limited by importing any of these results in the future. We would encourage it. We're looking to be very much open source. If anybody's taken 23andMe, for example, that's a great example. So they allow you to import data, export data. We're planning on actually allowing 23andMe genetic data to be imported into the AgeMeter. But that's a great example of creating an open source platform that people can use to really get an insight on their livelihood. Also a long-term exit opportunity for us as well that we've considered. But with that, there's really no one in the market today that's looking at functional abilities. When was the last time you went into a doctor beyond tapping your knee and they measured your reaction time, audio reaction time, your visual reaction time? Some of these, even your memory, your doctor never really measures your memory. All of these things are scientifically correlated, each one independent studies, correlated with aging. So if we have the ability to measure these in a non-invasive, friendly way to individuals, that's really where a huge element of our opportunity sits and what we're most excited about as we look to expand across markets. Going to the next slide, what does the business model look like? So the business model today, right now, kind of in our what we kind of a beta, commercial beta, is we're directly to doctors' offices around the world. So what you see, those are typically clinicians and researchers in a more traditional medical environment. And they have an upfront payment that they make for the hardware itself and the initial licensing and training, and then followed on with a monthly subscription on a per test basis. So that's what we've operated on thus far, even though a large portion of those AgeMeters we've actually not, if they're researchers or if it's compelling, we've not charged them per test, for example. Really, we just wanted to get units out there in the market. But as we look forward and really focusing on the consumer sector, we're testing right now our consumer version of the app, initially on the iPad and then on mobile devices. That's going to be a freemium-based model using all the best practices that you'll find today. So that is free to download, let them play around with it, get familiar with it, get them excited about the idea that this can be something that can benefit them. And then we provide premium upgrades. So initially we'll have premium subscription, which unlocks a larger number of tests in the sequence. Additional aspects of revenue generation would be being able to see more insights, be able to get more feedback, so recommendations, and unlock kind of more visualizations and chart features. Again, if any of you play with mobile apps, all of these are foundational principles that we're just going to be applying to the AgeMeter application itself. We're still going to be involved in the traditional medical space and fitness space. That's where our customer base has shown excitement thus far on the consumers. And so we're going to have the balance there, but the consumer side can actually feed the medical side as well. So the more data we have generally, the better the product is. But also if you have a physician, you can actually tie your data and give access to your physician. So you can go in and they can have access to all of that data if you so choose. They can have access to all of that data to better diagnose you, to better treat you as part of your general wellness practice. Again, the idea is making this data available to you as the individual to deploy as best as you can for a longer, healthier life. And then on the tail end, which is kind of the grander vision, is on research and data. Again, talking to researchers and those that have it sitting at Harvard Medical School right now, is they don't have a great centralized resource for this age-related data. There simply isn't one today. And so we really want to be able to provide that, because beyond monetization success of AgeMeter is really if there is a centralized database of all of this physiological biomarker data when it comes to aging, that means research studies can be done and new products and new innovations can stem from this type of data set, which is kind of the grand goal, is for all of us in the world to live longer and healthier. And it's not, while AgeMeter can be the catalyst for that, we intend for it to be, it's certainly not the end. And we're very excited for the long-term prospects of being able to serve that role in the market. Go to market. So really, again, traditional best practices here, nothing being reinvented. So you have a lot of earned and paid media. So you have really on the earned media side, this is a compelling story. This is a compelling narrative that can be told. And so going to, we've spoken at a lot of events, already gotten earned media and coverage from the likes of Yahoo News and iHeartRadio and Wired magazine, and you have a lot of those facets. You then have paid and digital campaigns that obviously will be running. We haven't run yet because we're targeting that more so for the consumer, direct to consumer. And so with that, you have we're just run various campaigns across social media platforms and Google Ads and so on, optimize all of those based on our target demographics. And then really long-term, kind of in this model, after those mechanics is how do you get people to stay? And how are retention tactics going to be deployed? And that comes down to making sure that we continue to expand the testing offerings that are provided to individuals at all times, making sure that we have standard things, push notifications and so on to people engaged, keep people excited about prospects showing progress along the way. So if you're actually able to implement new innovative changes to reverse the rate of change that we're detecting, that's obviously the long-term goal. And so we're very excited, and we think there's a lot of tools we can deploy when it comes to long-term retention within the field. And again, coverage has been great so far at our early stage. We were at the CES, I believe, not last one, but the right pre-pandemic CES. But we're excited about the phenomenal feedback we've received so far. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Elliot for closing thoughts. Thank you, Oprah.
Thanks very much, EJ and Taylor. So at this point, we can open it up for questions, I would say.
Okay, everybody. Don't forget to put your questions in the Q&A for me, please. First of all, thank you. Excellent presentation, everybody. Talicia's putting the link in the chat for everybody as well. So Jackie is saying, I invested in your company and I would like the latest information. So again, if you're able to kind of give us, since the last time you were here, the top highlights of some of the progress you've made with regards to this project.
Yeah, well, one of the biggest things is that just a few weeks ago, Dr. Church joined our advisory board. He actually played a role at the very beginning in helping us get started. And now he's actually on board with the company, and it's opening up a whole huge collection of resources to help us move forward. And then the biggest thing has already been discussed as far as the product is concerned, and that is the Age Meter mobile app, which we now have in beta, and will be making available with potentially almost anybody over the age of 30 is a prospect for using that app.
Great. Sarah's asking, we all know how valuable human data is. When the likes of Amazon or Google come knocking, how will you keep users' privacy protected so that it remains anonymous?
Taylor, you want to take that one?
Yeah, certainly. So our data is protected today, and with actually that might be a change from when we last talked. Is we recently overhauled our backend from our kind of initial stages, but we follow all HIPAA compliance. When it comes to that degree, it's all encrypted data, end-to-end encryption of that information. And so this isn't exposed in any way. You see data leaks of everyone's personal information from the likes of Sony. Those are all using bad practices. So at a core, everything is encrypted in terms of the data localized to you and your account with various verification measures. And so when they come knocking, they can't, from a security standpoint, we don't anticipate anyone's data being stolen. It's really not accessible on scale. Even on the back end, just for visibility, is I can't go in today and easily look at, Elliot Small and what are all of his results. I personally can't just log into our portal. We have a kind of a decentralized mechanism so that all that data is stored separately and then encrypted and brought together on the back end for further protection from that. And then really, we're not looking to monetize the data to the likes of those commercial institutions. It's really medical institutions and those types of practice, the Harvard Medical School, for example, is that's really our first target when it comes to making the data available. And then when the data is made available to them, everything is, any personal information is redacted across the board. So no one's name is ever transmitted, simply a date of birth, no location information or anything to that degree. It's date of birth and then all of the historical pieces. But we are not planning on releasing that data in the near future. So call it the next 24 months. There's no intention to unlock that asset. It's all internalized data today.
Okay, great. Sarah has another question. Will people be able to opt out of having their data shared?
Yes, and also per European compliance standards, you can also have any of your data purged at any time. However, the one piece is your data would be retained for the internal age meter calculations, because the way our actual calculations are made. So when I say, if you're 50 and you're testing like a 65-year-old, that's actually a self-referencing database. So every contributor to that database helps improve the accuracy of the result. Again, your personal information is not tied into that. And so you can have your information deleted at any time. And effectively, it's limited when you it's limited to opt out of any sort of third-party distribution, but it is included at least in the internal age meter calculations intentionally.
So tell us a little bit about your growth plans, like beyond the next 24 months, like 5 years, 10 years. Are you all planning on making a crap load of money and exiting? Is this something you want to hold on to for a long time? What's the long-term
Well, we
goals?
want to hold on to it for as long as good business judgment would dictate. That's always the driving factor in making that sort of decision. A desirable exit plan is to become a public company. Another, could be a buyout. But to add a bit of philosophical aspect to that, there's a chance that we could be one of the first African-American firms that is actually at the core of a major new industry. And so we want to keep that part of history going to the greatest extent possible.
Right. Taylor or EJ, did you all want to answer any part of that question?
Yeah, I would say that as far as what our goals are, the things that we're trying to accomplish, like for our company, regardless of whether we go public or whether we get acquired by somebody, like we would only want to be acquired by someone who kind of shares the goals that we have set out for and the things that we're trying to really help the public, get younger, extend their lifespan as much as possible. I know that I personally have felt this over the last few years after a knee injury. Has limited my athletic ability, and also having all these gray hairs come in that my dad didn't tell me were coming at the age of 30. And so aging has taken on something very personal to me. And so when we talk about the question that folks are asking, that was one of the last things I was presenting, asking the question, how old am I today? People probably think about that often, but they may not kind of vocalize it. It may come in a bunch of different forms. And so helping people actually answer that question through the forms of like integration with, the various wearables that folks are already using, keeping an eye on what are the next set of technology research that comes down the pike, making sure that our platform is open and available to integrate with those things that come down the pike. So that's, we want to spend these 24 months making a platform that can be extensible beyond just our goals over the next 2 years. We want this to be something that folks can use in the long term so that they can help answer that question for themselves. How old am I today and how can I, get younger?
Yeah. And outside of money, what's the toughest part of growing right now? What's, something that you need right now? Obviously capital, but
Certainly. I think one thing in the space is the rate of change and making sure that we can stay on top of really the industry and the most recent technology. Part of that is capital, so you can stay on top of it, but bringing people on like Dr. Church are absolutely imperative to our long-term success. People in the field, people leading these research efforts. because I'm an incredible technological optimist. We're gonna, some estimates say we're gonna go through 20,000 years of technological change in the next 100. It's like unfathomable kind of concepts that are being thrown around out there. And so for us, surrounding ourselves, people is always going to be one of those challenges. I think we've been very fortunate by the people we've surrounded ourselves by, but making sure that we have a team that is agile, a team that is represented and diverse in, various representations across society, across research fields. That's going to be a continuing emphasis to bring the perspective that we need to help bring all this medical technology and bring it to a consumer directly. And that's what I'm most excited about, is having to go to a doctor. You go to a doctor twice a year, you get some of this information, and then they give you some reactive. It's particularly medicine is very reactive. It's slow moving. It's very traditional. I'm all for utilizing and leveraging technology to bring that directly into a consumer's home, empower them directly. And in order to do so, we need to make sure that we are surrounded by a phenomenal team of people that are innovating independently and then contributing from an advisory perspective, or the people on this call, everyone here, everyone who represents the questions, the Q&As, their concerns, that kind of input and feedback loop and building a team, from my perspective, is always going to be a challenge and always going to be one of the absolute most important pieces of any company.
Well, I hope that when you all are hiring, you choose to come back to the 10K project, because we do have our expert directory, and everybody who's here, remember to add your information to the expert directory as well, so that way the money can circulate within the community. Go ahead, Elliot.
In fact, you've been the source of our lead investor on WeFunder.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. I think I knew that story. So Sarah's asking a question here. It's a more hypothetical question. She says, what do you envision the world being like with a population that is living healthier and longer?
Well, one thing that comes to mind is, I guess most of you have heard of Morgan Freeman. I don't know if everyone has seen the show we used to have a few years ago called Through the Wormhole, a different scientific topic on each episode. So he did one where he had aging reversal scientists from around the world. They also included both Dr. Sinclair and Dr. Church from Harvard Medical School. And he had a video that he did where he narrated, imagine a world where when you walk down the street, you can't know anyone's age just by looking at them. They all look like they're about the same as we did in our early adulthood.
Yeah. Anybody else want to tackle that question?
Yeah, I love these questions. I mean, it's kind of the fun of the world. I just view it as a net positive society. So we're actually, people think that we're having an overpopulation issue, but a lot of recent data is actually suggesting that we're on the path of peaking, and then the global population level is actually going to be declining. So some people have said, well, should people live longer? And I think the answer is absolutely yes. We're actually going to see a population, people are having fewer children. And so we're actually going to have a population issue with not enough people to support a lot of the economy. So I think if we can live longer, healthier, I think that's going to benefit us as a whole. There's actually, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but like Peter Diamandis and some of the people that we were talking with have cited incredible economic benefit in the hundreds of billions and trillions. If you could extend someone's healthy, working, contributing societal life by just 5 years. So, if people, instead of stopping at 70, could live healthier to 75 or 75 to 80, that has an incredible benefit to society as a whole, or people being able to participate in raising the next generation of people with all of that wisdom, right? Older people bring wisdom, and being able to give those back. So I think it's an incredibly powerful thing, and I think we'd be a healthier, better, more rounded society long-term.
Yeah.
Yes, and also the elimination of the very expensive healthcare that nearly everyone in the current status quo has to experience during the later years of life.
Even the middle part of life, we're sicker longer.
Even then, in some cases.
Yeah. Anonymous is asking, as you gain more data on aging, will there be a list of good practices, for example, foods to eat, etc., provided to users of the premium version to assist in the anti-aging process?
Yep. And I can take this one.
Well, actually, our medical director, Dr. Edward Lane, that you saw on the team chart, has been putting that information together on an ongoing basis. It's actually, it's always a work in progress as new information comes out. And a part of the app would be for people to not just measure their functional age and how it compares to their birth age, but to be able to be provided by us with the latest information on aging reversal research, lifestyle changes, and other things that are out there, and as well as some patented options that we can provide ourselves.
Yep. And to add on to what Elliot was saying about the work that Dr. Lane is doing, putting together personalized programs for each of these folks based off of the areas, the biomarkers where there either was a decline, as Taylor alluded to earlier, or places where they may already be trending lower compared to some of the people in their age range. So by using the data that's and the test and how the results from the test, we can put together personalized programs, basically saying, making suggestions that said like people who did X, Y, or Z after getting a lower test were able to improve their score or improve their cognitive measurements by X or improve their hearing by Y. And we strive to continue to improve these personalized programs based off of the research and based off of the data that we collect, and having our medical team be able to just get better over time.
Right. So I have a couple of.
In connection with that, we would also foster social media interactions as well. Create a community around the age meter and age meter testing.
I like that. We all want to get younger. So the next question I have for you may seem a little sensitive here, but you had mentioned the fact that you would also be collecting data based on race as well, and being able to partition data based on race. And one of the things that Talisha always talks about is how this data could be used against the community. So do you have any thoughts with regards to that, that concern that some people may have?
We would seek to engage any protections that are possible to prevent that from happening, because the actual goal would be to benefit an individual ethnic group such as ours by being able to help the entities out there that want to help to focus on our requirements.
Right. And just to add on to that, like one of the reasons why we do want to collect that data based off race is because a lot of the data that have been in studies to this point typically don't include people that look like us. They typically don't include people of color. They're typically like people like 1865, of a typically European background. And so the then scientific or the results that come out of that research do not always apply. They are not always as effective for people of color. And so we want to work with people like Morehouse Medical School that my dad has a strong connection with, and Tulane Medical School. We want to work with both.
I should mention your dad, Dr. Lane, was one of the people who helped found the clinical division of Morehouse Medical School when it was first established.
Exactly.
And he became their first clinical director.
Exactly. And so we want to leverage those connections that we have with historically Black colleges and the colleges that Elliot and my dad helped set up the medical department, and like legitimately start to turn the tide and come up with not just do the research, but actually come up with treatment, personalized treatments like I was talking about, that are more effective for people of color. And so that is the main objective for collecting, that information about race. Your concern is very fair though. And so we do need to be extra careful about how and where we collect that and make sure that's protected with the same policies that Taylor alluded to earlier.
Right. Yeah, I mean, sometimes they'll use it for like hotspots of, oh, this group over here, we're able to have policies that are against them or things like that. So I know she always mentions that as a concern. Another question is, I didn't remember seeing like what you were going to do with the money. Do you have use of funds that you're thinking of deploying?
Yep. Taylor, do you want to take that
We
one?
want to take that one. Yeah, we
Yeah,
said
absolutely. And one thing on your last question is geolocation data is not going to be initially is not initially part of our plan as
Okay.
well. So when it comes to that element, in terms of use of funds, right now we're going actually through a rebranding process that would be completed. It is going to be completed this year. So bringing everything to a bit more modern consumer design standard. And I think the biggest push and the primary utilization of the funds is geared towards about 80% would be geared towards product and pushing out the mobile development initiative. And so that is helping to bring, because while right now we're developing the iPad aspect, from a distribution success standpoint, we want to be where everyone's eyeballs are, just kind of marketing 101, and really bringing this technology and translating it to the mobile environment. And so traditionally we've been operating on an kind of the iPad environment, still a great degree of utility, but as you translate to a mobile phone, is rethinking every single test and thinking of new ways to innovate and utilize that phone. Because there's 6 billion smartphones in the world. You want to be on as many as you possibly can. And really, if we can launch on Google Play or kind of Android and iOS on a mobile phone basis, that's going to be our bread and butter moving forward in terms of our long-term initiative. So that's what we're looking to primarily utilize the funds for, obviously general operations and marketing, but focus initially on product and then digital marketing and earned media and those types of campaigns.
Great. Anybody else have any more questions for this phenomenal team? I don't see any more in the Q&A, but those were the questions that I had this evening. So I'll give people another minute to put more questions in. In the meantime, EJ, Taylor, Elliot, do you all have final words, final things that people should think about as they're thinking about their final questions?
Well, I guess each of us might have some remark on that. This has been covered in the presentation anyway, but just to reemphasize, this is a whole new world that's starting out there. And this is an opportunity for people like us to be a major part of it, just as when the PCs started or electric vehicles, so on and so forth. So from a social point of view, that's something that's very, very exciting. Then, as far as the world in general is concerned, that I guess the curse of bad health later in life will be eventually non-existent. Medical science is actually at that point. This idea of anti-aging first started around 1990, and people were laughing out loud. But now you've got institutions like Harvard Medical School who are at the forefront of it. And when that began to happen a few years ago, then the whole world started to take it a lot more seriously.
I think technology, first thing, thank you for everyone's time and listening to us for an hour. But this is an inevitability. A tool type like this, I think just looking at it is giving consumers the ability and giving doctors and researchers the ability to measure physiological biomarkers correlated with aging, be able to research that data, provide recommendations to consumers. It's an inevitable piece. Now, it's execution age meter wasn't here, might be slightly different, might be from 3 different apps, but we see this as a common, which was what attracted me. My background was not in the medical space, but we built a lot of consumer technologies. We worked with the likes of TCL. And when I met Elliot, it just made sense. I'm not even, I experienced aging aggressively after having a toddler recently. Wrinkles are now fastly appearing.
I
but
don't
as a
think you can
whole,
reverse that at all. I think that's just a part of life.
don't sleep for 9 months and then magically you feel like you aged 10 years. But I think
We
that's
better-
what
we
excites
better
me about
speed up
this
that
is it
patent
can be
that
so
Annie-
powerful and truly help people.
We better speed up that patented anti-wrinkle thing that that was just issued to me as an inventor. Largely based, a lot of that was based on research that came out of Harvard, but with some different wrinkles to it. And we've also got another patent pending that has to do with hair color, and then another one that has to do with performance that's about to be filed. Well, what happened is there was one patent application, and then the patent examiner broke it up into different categories where they approved one category, then you file a continuation patent for another category, and there's a third continuation patent about to be filed for yet another category, and it'll keep going like that.
So CFAC, by the way, Centers for Age Control Inc., just for clarification on everyone on the call, is the corporation itself. Age Meter is the primary product, but as Elliot alluded to, we have other IP led by him and Dr. Lane that are being developed for the larger purpose of really helping improve people's lives through aging well.
Yep.
Mm,
And
yeah.
just the last thing that I'll say on it to add on to what Taylor was saying about the thing that attracted me. I already mentioned the age of personal aging that I felt, but it is very cool and encouraging to see every new set of people that we talk to, whether it's at a show like CES, whether it's at the talk like the Amandus conference that we went to, whether it's coming and talking to great groups like this one. Folks truly get it. Like, it is very easy to understand, not just that aging is relevant to everybody, but that when you measure actual functional signals from folks, and then you put all those signals together to give you an estimate, it's very easy to understand. And so we think that that ease of understanding and ease of execution is what is going to help us be successful. And we would love to bring as many people along for that journey as possible, both from the consumer space, as well as the medical professional space, and as well as the investment space.
Well, everybody, those were the only questions for the evening. Oh, I'm sorry. Another question here. Bamadeli is asking, I'm sorry, I said, if I did not say your name right, I apologize. Will the app take into account those who have taken a holistic approach to their daily lives for specific data markers that could help others in their approaches to work-life balance?
Yeah, certainly would, because that's part of the package is to not only measure functional age compared to your birth age, but to see how that is improved by helping you stay on top of the latest developments in aging reversal research. You know, some of which will even be provided, via a patent and the patent pending that we have ourselves. But anyone else want to further elaborate on that?
Yeah, I have a bit more, making sure I answer your question. We're not while we have our core physiological biomarkers that have scientific research, it's also looking at data and research that has yet to be discovered, like cross correlation. So not only between those markers, but being able to do Q&A style of how did you sleep last night? What is your caffeine intake? What does your daily lifestyle look like? And so looking at those, we don't necessarily understand the correlation between them yet, but but information like that is long-term going to be very valuable to understanding not only how those physiological markers are measuring, but how can one live one life or change that dynamic accordingly long-term.
Perfect. All righty then. I don't know why. Oh, I'm sorry. She answered that. Okay, everybody. August 15th is the final day for this this round of funding for this great company. So definitely go to WeFunder. Please use the link, the 10K project link. That way we are able to, have a good understanding of how many eyes we're drawing to this specific campaign. You are also able to take that link and send it to family and friends that you also think would be interested. But, definitely do your own research, take a look at all of the information, but you kind of got to hurry with this because August 15th is the final day for this round of funding. Okay. If you have questions again, please come to the WeFunder page and ask there versus trying to go to Elliot or EJ or Taylor's email, because they may say, I cannot answer your question in an email forum. So the best way for you to ask a question, if you have ones after now, is to go to the Ask a Question tab there and actually ask your question on WeFunder. And that way we can stay compliant with the law as well, because it's an SEC law with regards to that. Okay. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being here tonight.
And thank you very much for having us. And thank you everyone very much for coming out.
Absolutely. And we will have the replay tomorrow morning. Thanks, everybody. People are saying nice presentation. So definitely everyone, also be a consumer of something like this as well when they release the final version of it. Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone.
Good night.